That is hands down one, obviously the most Italian name I've ever heard. Saint Pier Battista Balla, whatever the hell it was. That is the greatest name I have ever heard.
You guys ever seen these photos of what washed up on the shore straight off the coast of St. Augustine?
No.
Okay, in the late 1800s, this unidentified creature washed up on the shore. It's like 18 feet long, but what's super interesting is they said it had 7 legs and a tail. But as like research has continued on this creature, they're surmising it wasn't a tail, it was the 8th appendage. And most of the octopus-like arms had been cut pretty short. You know, this thing had been dead in the sea. And when you think about some of the earliest stories of creatures like this are like the pirate era, 1700s.
Like
and
a kraken.
yeah, like they're saying because of the size of this thing, and if it were an actual octopus, the tentacles could have been like 100-foot long.
Oh.
Because they're
Delicious.
like, you can see them in the photos, but they're like this big around at the nubs.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so the actual creature would have been what we see pictures of, like the stories we hear. And so if they took samples and they compared it to octopus, and they said a tissue sample, it's like octopi giganta something in Latin, but they're calling it a giant octopus. That's what it is.
Whoa.
Dr. DeWitt Webb in November 30th of 1896 is the first person who arrived where 2 boys had discovered this octopus on the beach. And so it's a professional science person who actually collected the first samples.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, this is right off the coast, right off St. Augustine. So all those pictures we see of pirates and stuff, that is real. And for some reason, we don't know about it.
Oh my gosh.
Where's the rest of those suckers?
Literally.
That is crazy. And, you know, for some reason we don't know about it. It's because the ocean is so damn big. And there's hundreds, thousands of creatures we've never seen. And who knows how deep these giant squid kraken things go. But that is absolutely crazy that thing, I think they do exist. What do you think? Do you think the giant squid kraken is real?
You ready for this? These are some of the cardinals in the running for becoming pope, and there's a name. You'll know it when you hear it.
Perfect.
Cardinal Luis Tagle from the Philippines is a frontrunner to be the first Asian pope.
Yay.
Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin is 70. Another Italian, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, is also on the short list. At 60, he's lived for the last 3 decades in the Middle
Pier Pizza Bale.
From Italy, Pizza Balla. You hear it one more time.
Another Italian, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, is also on the
Pierre Battista Pizza Bale. That's what it is.
Pizza Balla. I'm like, that is the most Italian name I've ever
For
heard.
real. I don't know if I can vote, but I'll vote for him just in case.
Pizza Balla.
Pierre Battista Pizza Bala.
Pier Pizza Pizza Balla.
That's amazing.
Father Pizza Balla.
Pierre Battista Pizza for
That's
sure.
my son, Pizza Barra.
Just an Italian guy.
Mama.
Mamma mia, ma dai profole.
Hungry.
La baba.
Can I have the baba?
Okay, you guys.
That is hands down one, obviously the most Italian name I've ever heard. Saint Pier Battista Balla, whatever the hell it was. That is the greatest name I have ever heard.
Betty Barney Hill. So you remember that story?
American Horror Story.
Yeah. And so they're driving, they see a UFO. There's a detail that really stuck out. While they were up there talking with these aliens, there was one point where she saw just a notebook of journal, and it looked like this map of stars, just little dots, about 20, 26 dots with lines and stuff. And so she was asking, where are you from? And the alien guy looked at her. He said, there's really no point telling you where I'm from if you don't even know where you're at. And so when they get dropped back down, she takes a piece of paper and she draws what she saw, right? The 26 dots with the lines, the circles. And apparently when this got documented, it was checked by multiple scientists. They just couldn't figure out what it is. She just said, this is what I saw. And so it was years that went by, and look, scientists looking through a telescope and they connecting certain dots. It was the exact star map that she had written 10 years ago. I just sent you the picture.
Wow.
Dude,
They did not discover that until a decade after their abduction.
Holy smokes.
I mean, if that's not the most obvious proof of something really weird happening, I don't know what is.
Well, where is that?
Our sun is the top dot right there. And so everything that she pointed out was true. And apparently these aliens are from the Zeta Reticuli,
Is that one of the
binary star
cardinals?
system with 2 sun-like stars.
That's
Isn't that wild?
crazy.
But I hate that
Dumb.
line. It's like, I'm not going to tell you where I'm from if you don't even know where you're at.
Ugh.
I don't like that. So scary.
Don't like that at all.
That's so funny. I love that line. When people ask me where I'm from, I'm going to say that. Don't bother asking where I'm from if you don't know where you're at. That's wild. Part of me is like, oh, that's bull. Because how is she going to draw that from memory and it just happens to be exactly the way it actually is? You know, I don't know. But that is fascinating. And the fact that it is documented does lead some credence to the what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but I guess it's real. Let me know what you think.
Let's talk about real ID.
Real ID.
Real ID.
Real ID.
Oh, real ID.
I'm not getting the real ID.
It is a federalized identification system that everyone in the nation will have to have in order to fly domestically. They've been trying to pass this since the 80s in China.
Wow.
They had already passed a nationwide identification system. So everyone has something very similar to the real ID in China. The next step was the social credit score. They gave like a list of things that happens to lower your credit score. So court rulings, so like refusing to pay debts, criminal convictions, traffic violations. So I saw one thing, jaywalking can ruin your social credit score.
And those cameras catch it all too.
Then unpaid taxes or fines. If your credit score gets lowered, that bans you from flying on a plane, a train, sometimes even a bus. Keeps you from enrolling your children in private schools, applying for certain jobs or promotions. This one was a crazy one. They can slow down your internet speed. Just little inconveniences to make your life miserable. And then public shaming via government lists or media alerts. So I saw this one thing where they literally have like a LED screen board in this one city and they just display faces and names like this person jaywalked, they're just a terrible person. It's like public shaming. It's crazy.
People in New York City are absolutely fucked with the capital PH. That's all we do is jaywalk. But that's too much. That is way too much for social credit ID. What? And you know, people would let this pass because they're so distracted by having their phones in their hands and their heads up their asses that they're not willing to stand up for themselves and say no. I really hope that doesn't happen. But being that, you know, we now have the real ID, I have one. I didn't realize it was like that. I thought it was just like, oh, get your new ID. All right, cool. And China has it, and we're pretty much following what China's doing at this point. I really hope we don't have that social credit score because that is just going to destroy this place.
Underground cities. Former Bush administration official Catherine Fitz. She was just on Tucker Carlson's podcast and she did this really deep dive. Basically, they uncovered of what they know of. There are 170 underground cities under the entirety of the U.S. and in the ocean that the U.S. has been building since 1988. With a total of what they found, they've spent over $21 trillion on underground systems and cities. They said that they use an energy source or energy technologies that the public has never been allowed to see. And it's all for the purpose of a potential extinction level event. You know, like for years now, people are like, what's that sound of like it sounds like trumpets in the air and stuff. They're actively drilling under the entire US, and that's what I think the sounds are. It's just literally the earth just shifting underneath their feet. That's creating this noise of these trumpet-like sounds.
Why wouldn't they do it? They have the money, they have the resources, they have the land.
But then here's the question: who's surviving?
Yeah.
Who's on these
And
lists?
that's the thing. When
Social
this stuff gets
credit
out,
score.
if this thing were to be leaked, which it already has, people realize that. I mean, what are we going to do? We're not going to be on that list. People are going to lose their minds.
Pressure though of having to make a decision for your family. They're like, let's just say it was like you can come if you want, and it's like you have to make a decision. We're telling you it's gonna happen in like 30 days. Are you gonna come with us or not? And you actually have to make that call.
Well, I mean, if they give you the option, which they probably won't, it's going to be whoever has the most money or whatever, and that's how the society is built. But if they give you the option, who wouldn't go? Now, for me personally, I'd rather stay up here and see the sun and have some fresh air, things like that. Because look at it this way. If there's an apocalyptic event and you go into these bunkers, you're just the last to go. We're all going one way or another, you know? And you're just prolonging that.
I didn't believe it because because have you seen how certain streaming shows will edit certain parts out?
They did that for The Passion on Netflix.
Yeah.
What did they take out?
They took out the verse from Isaiah at the beginning.
And I
Is that
saw
not looking
that.
mad?
And I saw this one. I said, there's no way. Because in Robin Hood, the one with Russell Crowe, very first thing, there's a scroll that pops up, and in old lettering, it says, in times of tyranny and injustice, when law oppresses the people, the outlaw takes his place in history.
And they took it out of Netflix.
Only in the U.S. Canada, Ireland, people are from Britain. They're like, it's on ours.
We're getting so played, you
In
guys.
America, and I just played it, and it doesn't.
We're getting so played.
It literally is just a blank screen for 10
Dude, it's
seconds.
just-
Everybody go buy a bow.
I mean,
my gosh,
you talk
literally.
about physical copies of things.
What are
They
they-
are erasing history, and I know it's just a dumb movie.
No,
if
but
you think
if
they're
that's
doing
a
it with a
little
movie,
thing, yeah.
they're doing it on such bigger levels.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes no time.
Exactly.
When digital comes through, it's like it takes no time for them
That's
to
so
do
crazy.
that.
And that's exactly what the Mandela effect is they're changing the reality. But the reason why they're doing that is because this place has people who are influenced, and if someone sees that, they'd be willing to just do that and then be influenced to do it. And they don't want any uprising. And I'm trying to be vague with what I'm saying, so maybe it doesn't make much sense, but if you know, you know. They're just trying to keep everyone dumb and stupid, and blind. And I really hope I'm being so cryptic with what I'm saying, but you can get it. Wake up someday.
Speaking of governments and stuff, I saw this. This was crazy. In this one region of France, this 52-year-old farmer, Michel Dumpont, made a remarkable discovery. A gold deposit on his property, estimated of a worth of 4 billion euros.
Oh my gosh.
When was this?
Let this happen to
Recently.
me.
Basically, long story short, France is like, doesn't belong to you.
Of course.
It's called the mining code.
I know that it happens in America.
All subsoil minerals belong to the state, not the landowner.
Yeah.
Baloney.
As a result, the government of France took this gold away from this man
That's
that
why
was
you-
on his land.
Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anyone.
Keep your mouth shut.
That's crazy, though. Your property.
4 billion euros worth.
That exists here too, though.
It
Like
does.
a lot of people, when they sell, there's like cattle rights and there's mineral rights, not just the land. So you can buy the land from someone to build a home, but if there's oil found, the original seller can maintain mineral rights. Like anything under the ground is still theirs.
This land is your land. This land is your land. It doesn't belong to me, even if I find a lot of gold.
Please don't shoot me or take my money.
That is crazy. That's so stupid too. You're buying land for an astronomical amount of money now, and let's say you do find a gold mine or a ton of oil under your land. You don't own that, so what am I buying? The topical surface of this area? Explain it to me. Let me know what you think. Do you think that's bullshit? And we should all just be able to own what we buy, plus what's underneath that perimeter.
1919 in Boston. This was towards the end of World War I. They had this molasses factory, and they built this giant cauldron that held like 2 million gallons of molasses. They were in a time crunch because their first shipment of molasses from Cuba, I think, was on its way up. Didn't pass any inspections. It was in spring. There was this giant cold snap, and it quickly froze the molasses, and then it heated up again. So the gas that it produced, it exploded, and they said it was a 25-foot tidal wave of molasses that just took out the majority of this part of the city, killing 21 people.
Like 150 people got injured.
People were drowning in molasses.
Also, the molasses flowed at 35 miles an hour.
It took people out. Like, people couldn't outrun it. It just...
That's nuts.
The scariest one was there was a shop and these people ran in, but it broke through the glass.
Yeah.
Said that they're stuck in there for, I think they said like 8 hours before they got help. And one dude was just like this, and he couldn't float in molasses. You can't
Because it's
float
like
in
so
molasses.
dense.
So he slowly drowned in molasses.
Oh my God.
To this day, on very hot days in Boston, within that area, you can literally smell the molasses.
Yeah, they
still.
said the smell you can still smell molasses in this part of Boston.
Oh no.
That is crazy. Does anyone live in Boston that can verify that? Because that is absolutely insane. And that's probably one of the worst ways to go. Like drowning in regular water is one thing. You know, in another video, we saw people, or I mentioned someone drowning in a septic tank. That's the worst way to go. But molasses is right up there. It's just so thick and it just crushes you. That is wild. But again, if you live in Boston, let me know if you smell this stuff.
The day the sun stood still. All right, so in the book of Joshua in the Bible, the Israelites were fighting the Amorites, and it says in Joshua 10, verse 12 through 14, it says, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Ajalon." And it says, the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day.
Amazing.
What's more amazing is when this happened, 1400 to 1500 BC, there's different records from around the world. The sun standing still in China and in Egypt, but in Mesoamerica, the Mayans and Aztecs, they talked about how the night never ended. So it was a full day of just night, and they're all freaking out, so they decided to like do all these mass sacrifices and stuff. Then in Egypt, this one was actually crazy. They said that the sun changed erratically in the sky, so it was setting in the west and then stopped and then started going backwards.
Wow, that'd be wild.
But the proof of the sun standing still in the Bible was accounted for by different cultures around the world.
Think about the record, though. The other religions and regions were thrust into confusion by the narrative. The biblical account is the reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the middle of a conflict. So as far as like, if you were to argue which faith or which place was actually dialed into the causality of the event, our text gives that.
Yeah.
Unlike the rest.
That is so cool. I've never heard that before, but that's crazy that all these different societies have an account of the same thing. And the Mayans and Aztecs were the opposite, where it was nighttime all day. That kind of leads me to believe that something like this did happen and it was real. Sort of in similar line with, you know, ancient drawings and carvings of dragons and things like that you see in Mexico. You see the exact same thing in China. And they didn't have internet. They didn't have phones. So it leads you to believe that these things were real. So if there's multiple cultures and societies saying that this happened at the same time and they had no way of contacting each other, it leads me to believe it was real. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.
Saint Spiritum from Cyprus, year 325 AD, and it was the first ecumenical council of Nicaea. It was to discuss the divinity of the Trinity. There was this dude, his name was Arius. He was a big proponent in the early church of claiming that God the Father created Jesus, basically taking away the divinity of Christ. Saint Spiritum stood up, and everyone was embarrassed when he stood up because he was just like this humble shepherd dude. But he said, basically, the wisest of man is a foolishness to God. He says, I know the Holy Spirit's going to speak through me. He was basically just quoting scripture, and he's like, the word was Jesus Christ, and just goes into this whole thing. He's like, there's so many things in this world that have three parts, but is one. And then he pulls out, they say it was either a clay pot or a terracotta roof tile. And he says, in the name of the Father, he said, flames started to shoot out from the top of it. He said, in the name of the Son, water started to pour. So it was fire up top, water on the bottom. He said, in the name of the Holy Spirit, and he turned his hand and it was all dust. And he says, the Trinity is real and it's divine. And everyone was shook. To me, it gives a lot of validation because
Yeah.
it was only to display Christ.
Yeah.
And this dude's like, you act like you're so smart, but guess what? There's some things you can't explain that God does. He's like, God said he was with the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word is God.
Just because we can't explain it properly all the time doesn't mean he can.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have to just allow him to have that room, and we have to trust him to speak through us or allow other people to. That's crazy.
Oh, that's deep. That's so prophetic. That's really cool, though. And, you know, me being a skeptic would be like, oh, that's just some party trick. But that is interesting. And, you know, like, I want to believe that one. Because the universe, God, whatever you want to believe in, if you believe in that, works in mysterious ways. And that's one of them.
You hear something spooky though? In 1884, Pope Leo XIII, they were doing mass at the Vatican Chapel, and then all of a sudden he just froze. They said that his face went white as a ghost, and he stood there in terror for 10 minutes. But he said he just received a vision. There was two voices that were speaking to him, one being Jesus and one being Satan.
Oh my gosh.
And this is how the conversation went. The guttural voice, the voice of Satan, in his pride boasted to our Lord,
I can destroy your church.
the gentle voice of the Lord said, you can? Then go ahead and do so. Satan said,
To do so, I need more time and more power.
Then Jesus said, how much time and how much power?
75 to 100 years, and a greater power of those who will give themselves over to my service.
Then Jesus said, you have the time, you will have the power, do with them what you will.
It's like a Job situation.
Yeah. So that was the last Pope Leo got that vision.
Interesting.
I thought that was weird.
That is weird. You know, Satan saying, yeah, you know, I need a little bit more to destroy you. And God's like, I bet you have it all here. Go, do something. Do something. Do something. That's crazy.
You want to hear about a dinosaur?
I would love to.
I found something from the World War II era. Dinosaurs that were actually found in Africa, and it was reported on by British soldiers who were stationed in Zambia. It's called the Kangamata. The name translates to overturner of boats. Literally, to them, there's this mysterious creature that plagues them while they're fishing. It's known for having a beak, teeth, and large red featherless wings. And so they set up a hospital, and then someone comes into the hospital, and he is tore up, saying Kangamata. And when they're asking what happened, he begins giving these descriptions, and they have a book on them, and they flip through, and he stops, and it's depictions of dinosaurs. And he's like, that's it, that's the thing. And it's literally a pterodactyl like that. But what's crazy is that, you know, this is a medical office, these are British soldiers, and the report that was written, they're like, we saw the fear in his eyes. This isn't somebody telling us a ghost story. This was someone who was injured and came into our camp and was like, help me, I just got attacked by a Kangamata. And when he pointed out the picture with no pre-knowledge of like dinosaur books and stuff like that, he was like, that's what got me. That's what we have. It appeared in several 1940s and 1950s military and scientific reports.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's fun.
These critters are real.
Yeah, I mean, how could they not be?
That is so cool, man. I believe humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time. You know, if you go back to ancient texts, ancient artwork, you can see similarities to dinosaurs. But that's definitely something to real. Wow, that's crazy. Dinosaurs in Africa. I believe it. I believe it. Because I'm sure there's areas where, you know, people aren't allowed to go, where there's still probably something out there. Maybe not T-Rexes and pterodactyls and things like that, but there probably still something somewhere. Like Jurassic Park, for example, Isla Sorna, Isla Norte, whatever the hell it's called. It's programming to let you know something is there. Yes, it's in guise of a movie and it's all fun and games. And when it really happens, it's like you're desensitized to it, kind of like I am now, I guess. And it's like, oh yeah, I can see that. Do you think dinosaurs still exist or lived with humans at the same time?
Did you guys ever hear that story about how World War III was almost started over a tree? Did we ever talk about this?
Which tree?
A tree in South Korea.
No.
In South Korea, North Korea, there's the demilitarized zone, you know, that cuts across the entire peninsula.
Yeah.
And in this demilitarized zone, there was this tree. In 1976, the U.S. decided, hey, we got to cut down this tree because it's blocking our view now for like security reasons and stuff.
Sure.
So they sent a team out there to cut down this tree. North Korea saw it, sent some dudes down there. They literally fought. A couple of Americans died, and then all hell just broke loose.
Yeah.
So like the U.S. sent in 2 aircraft carriers offshore, B-52 bombers, dozens of F-4 Phantoms, and attack helicopters, and South Korean special forces in plain sight. Nuclear alert status was upgraded, and then they sent in a team to cut down the tree.
Just for the tree.
Just for the tree.
All this for a tree.
Apparently,
Yeah.
what's his face? Who was the first one?
Ill, right?
Kim Il-sung, the first North Korean dude.
Probably Kim.
But apparently he planted that tree. And so like it was a sacred tree because it like represented his divinity and
Got
stuff. But yeah, North Korea, they're like, we're about to flip
Yeah.
the freaking
Over
nuke on
it-
you guys over a tree.
That would have been the most hilarious history class 50 years later.
How did it start?
Tree.
Racism? Prejudice? What?
A tree.
This is
A
the
tree.
plot to Avatar.
Wow, literally.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that is crazy. And you know what? Wars have started over dumber things. So I can definitely see that being a reason why a war would start. But World War III to that extent? That's crazy.
Remember we talked about demons possessing AI?
Yes.
Have you heard this new thing happening? It's the freakiest thing ever.
What?
ChatGPT users are developing bizarre delusions. Listen to this. So one man claimed AI helped him, quote, recover childhood memories that experts say never happened. Another began to worship ChatGPT, believing it was a divine messenger. A viral Reddit user declared themselves a spiral star child, convinced that AI revealed their cosmic destiny. In some cases, users researchers claimed AI validated decisions like abandoning their families
Oh, gosh.
and hearing voices in radio waves.
I don't think these people are going crazy. I think it's just opening yourself up to something.
But apparently people are getting like weird vision involved with their AI. It's really creepy.
I mean, even from a psychological standpoint, though, you ever like doom scrolling and then you're thinking, hey, I should go get something, and then it's like the next ad
Oh, yeah.
in your feed. You're like, I didn't say that one out loud.
Yeah,
Why on
dude.
earth? I think they've already got our programming so dialed.
Yeah, I mean, I
think
also
about-
creeped out when I asked it to list off everything it thinks it knows about me and how crazy accurate it was. And I don't give it any like personal information about my life.
It learns.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm scared by this technology, but when I was in middle school, I had one of those electronic game things of 20 questions
Oh, yeah.
every single time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, how does
Yeah,
it
that
doing
was- that was
this?
Yeah.
weird.
It's that
I guess
type
we're
of stuff.
that
It's
predictable.
deduction. There's got to be levels of reading that it can do that we have no way to understand.
Yeah, that is crazy. AI is no joke. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but I kind of want to see if I can dig up some memories that maybe I forgot about. So I don't know how they do that. I don't know what's going on up there, but the future is now, old man.
Footprints in the desert in Mexico. They are dated 10,000 years old. They observed these footprints, and what they assume, just judging off the footprints, it was a lady that was running from something, and the footprints, they're a mile long, and they don't deviate. They're like a straight line. And every couple hundred yards, looks like she stops and puts someone down. It's a child. And you can see following the tracks, giant sloth tracks. And it says at one point it looked like it stood up and then back down and was chasing her. So they go for a mile long, and then they just stop, and then it's just her footprints coming back right beside them, but with no child. But the weird thing is, obviously this was like mud or something she was running in. These footprints were left undisturbed for 10,000 years, so no animal, no human stepped on them. So the theory is something could have happened to just freeze time in that region at that moment, like a cataclysm or something.
Yeah.
So that's why she was running. That's why the sloth could have been running.
They're all running from something.
Yeah.
In my head, the sloth was chasing her to eat her.
That could have been, though.
I mean, a heat event, kind of like firing pottery.
That lines up a lot with old Aztec and Mayan. Gods got angry and they sent down fire from heaven and stuff.
Yeah, that's an eerie sight. I'm visualizing it now, dude. That's such a frightening image.
Yeah, that's crazy. I had just heard about this recently too, and they touched up on it very, very nicely. Good job. But that's my mind is racing a million miles a minute right now because I have so many questions. But what do you think? Do you think the sloth was chasing this woman and the baby? Or do you think they were both running away from something? Personally, I don't know what a sloth's diet is, let alone a giant sloth, so maybe it was chasing her. But I think the sloth was chasing them because it stood up and went back down. But that's so crazy, and my mind is perplexed. Let me know what you think. I gotta go stand up and then sit down for a second and chill. YouTube, that's all I got for you today. Let me know what your favorite clip was. Mine was, if I had to choose right now on the spot, because I'm putting myself on the spot, would be the giant sloth chasing that lady and the baby. That one just blew my mind. Let me know what your favorite was. As always, I am Nick, the Babadook of YouTube. Drop a comment, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. I will catch you in the next one, and check out these videos that I made just for you.